You know really too little about China. Little knowledge is dangerous. We have 130 million visitors abroad, 3 million students abroad.
Don't attack me about
still
my
don't
knowledge,
know.
because that's not the right way to go about
even
it.
with that, we cannot agree to your interpretation.
I would like my why.
Now, when you talk about this uncertainty about the power in the West, it indeed has to do with the shift of power in the world from the West to the rest, notably China. And if we talk about the power in terms of soft power and hard power, what you see is clearly what I call a shift, a paradigm shift from the so-called democracy versus autocracy to good governance versus bad governance. That's what China advocates. Good governance can take the form of Western political system. There are some cases, not always. Good governance can also take the form of non-Western political system. Chinese is an example. We have many problems, but overwhelmingly speaking, it's far more positive than negative. Likewise, bad governance can take the form of the Western political system. This is crucial. I can give you 100 examples. And then bad governance, of course, can also take the non-Western political system. Behind this is a shifting hard power. From our study and calculation, and from also study of certain international organizations, China is already the largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. We have created the world's largest middle class. We export most tourism than other countries, even combined. We have created largest property class. Most Chinese have properties. We have created world's largest foreign exchange reserve. Of course, these are economic powers which can have influence. I said, on the other hand, be aware, I think Arab Spring will become Arab Winter. I checked, I may be the first intellectual in the world to make this comment. I was with Brussels think tanks last year. I said, if only European Brussels could hit to the, with my Chinese modesty, or humble advice, you could have avoided this terrible refugee crisis. 1.5 million people a year, refugees, escape from broken homeland to Europe. We could have avoided. And secondly, I also made another prediction 6 years and a half ago. I said the United States and China both need political reforms. But in the case of China, small reforms have been going on all the time in the political system. We fix problems here and there. But I said, the problem is the United States. Your political system was a product of pre-industrial era. And I made a forecast. I said, without significant, substantial political reform, my concern is in your next elections, you will produce a leader worse off than George W. Bush.
Yes.
The whole idea of good aspect of enlightenment is about rational. You have to be rational with China, with enlightenment, with the West itself. If you look at China, now we export every year 130 million tourists. 99.999% return to China. Why do they prefer to return to a country without human rights? Of course, the opposite is true. It's vast improvement of human rights. It's so easy to check with any Chinese you meet in Brussels, in Amsterdam, in Beijing, Shanghai, everywhere in China. It's so simple, it's common sense. The point is, what we should guard against is Western cultural arrogance. You have so many reporters based in Beijing and Shanghai. They never speak Chinese language. But we send millions of Chinese students, 85% return home. Why they return home? Because they think, they see the future, they see the chance. Of course, you have your freedom of speech, I respect. But China is a civilizational state. I remember when Henry Kissinger wrote his famous book on China, he started with this quote. He said, my goodness, look at this China. It's different. China uses this unique language, which started 3,500 years ago. It's 1,000 years earlier than ancient Greek, 1,005 years earlier than ancient Latin. But these two European languages were dead languages. Chinese are still using the same language. This line of culture and continuation of civilization, uninterrupted. So this is why we have indeed, for instance, this whole idea of meritocracy. Actually, it depends on how do you define democracy. I like this Nexus Forum because you said at the very beginning, we discussed the real meaning of democracy, real democracy. But unfortunately, so far what we see, as shown in Arab Spring, about one person, one vote, a multi-party system, that's at best procedural democracy. That's not necessarily the real democracy. Real democracy is far more important, as you said, about education, about many other important ideals. In terms of China, let me quote from, everybody knows, Confucius. Yeah. And he said, people are like water. Regime or leaders are like boat. Water can carry the boat, can also overturn the boat. So if you look at the China model in particular, the key message is stay in touch with your people. It's so easy. If you go to Africa, don't go there with your brilliant ideas. I respect your preference. It's understandable. But you do some surveys. What are they care about most? Fighting poverty, fighting disease, street security, safety, etc., job creation. You do this accordingly, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how China did. We call it people's livelihood-centered model. It's working very well. And furthermore, in terms of governance, really, governance is about serious business. I remember Plato once joked. He said, "How could you, if you are sick, you are in disease, would you trust the doctor elected by people on the square, or you prefer a trained, well-grounded professional doctor?" Of course, you prefer the second, the latter.
It's not true, because you go on Google and this is basically self-appointed doctors.
The point is, you have to be accepted by your own people. China is a very different country. I always say China is unified.
So concretely, you do
Could I
prefer
finish?
the world
over there.
Garbage in, garbage out. So you have to be selective. Otherwise, in this new social media, you could have all kinds of stories. China is a civilizational state. What does it mean? If you look at the size, in Europe, I made a rough calculation. A country is, in average, 14 million people. China is 1.4 billion people. 100 times larger than Europe. I make comparison. I say it's almost like a Roman Empire has continued to this day. It's vast, it's diverse, but people speak the same language called Mandarin Chinese. So it's a unified country for over 2,000 years. Then it has shaped its own conditions. For instance, for a long time, Fukuyama, I give him some credit. He said that China is the first country that invented modern state. What?
May I suggest?
Actually, Chinese economy has gone through ups and downs over the past 4 decades, if you go back earlier. But, actually, each time when there is a crisis, it's an opportunity. We seize the crisis. The Chinese approach is very dialectical. Every crisis is also a good opportunity, and you can seize the opportunity. I think in today's world, there are fierce competitions. To my mind, United States needs reforms. European countries need reforms. China needs reforms. But actually, arguably, China is the only country that can really push for reforms, political, economic, social, substantial reforms. If you look at the Chinese historical tradition, political culture, I think really I counsel, advocate this to non-Chinese as well. It's about moderation. Don't go to the extremes. You could have your own belief system, which we respect, but don't impose this on others in terms of so-called universal values. We had a long study. We checked these universal values, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. Then you look at the Chinese society, even in Singapore, in Hong Kong, all these who use chopsticks, the number one priority is always public order. In the United States, it's freedom of speech, although I doubt because the United States is a politically correct society. Could you have real freedom of speech? Yeah. But that's another question. Yeah. So in terms of values, we should all respect each other's values and then try to see, because in the Chinese philosophy, it's about the opposites can coexist. It's like the disease cancer. The cancer cell is in the body of everyone. But you can live with it. You try to create a situation, it will not develop negatively in the wrong direction. Rather than the good must defeat evil, kill evil, and I represent the good, the best, others are just rubbish. So this will be a way how to create this new world. But the overall guiding philosophy is discussing together, building together, benefiting together. If you are interested, please join in. If you're not interested, we don't care. Yeah. So that's the way we do it. Yeah, I think we talk about this Confucius' famous saying, the water represents people in the regime or political leaders as boats. We have to know really, honestly, how your people think, feel the pulse of the society.